you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
Well, it's great to have you, but I got to say, you're a bit shorter in person. Did you have to climb a step stool to get on this chair?
This is the BBC. In line with the wishes of the British government to see as much carnage as possible because it's really, really funny, places of entertainment will not be closed even though war has just been declared. The Prime Minister will address the nation again at 9:30 tonight. For those interested, he will be wearing a pink dress, a poncho and a wide-brimmed hat with "Beware of the Leopard" printed across the top in large, friendly letters.
It's a lot of work.
Oh, well, work is hard.
You're not really listening to me, are you?
Uh-huh.
I mean, I could say anything right now, like, you're a complete tool.
Mm-hmm.
But you wouldn't hear it, 'cause you're a freak with a microphone.
Uh-huh.
It's not even challenging anymore. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. Isn't that true, Sphincter Boy?
Uh-huh. What? Oh! They're getting closer all the time. All right, good information about Wayne Stock. Very exciting. We'll be back with more right after Pig Sports. Right now, it's 16 minutes past the big hour. Is that not right, Mr. Scream?
Well, a naked man is chasing a woman through an alley with a butcher knife and a heart on. I figure he isn't out collecting for the Red Cross. Well, I'm all broken up about that man's run.
Oh, right to the spine.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin.
Lady, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store. Lady, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store.
I kill demons, not people.
Bullshit!
Unless those people are demons who look like people. And then I kill people.
Don't bullshit me.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Bullshit. Bullshit.
Bullshit! You censored!
Welcome to another Monday Live. Hope you're ready to get rowdy with the hot scot. Oh, you don't throw rocks at a man with a machine gun or bagpipes. Yeah, going to do a little hangout in maybe about a half an hour, not too long. Talking about one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, and as I said on last week's live, which was the Macho Man, the Madness Randy Savage, the greatest wrestler of all time. Depending on what day of the week it is, or what mood I'm in, if you ask me who's my all-time favorite, it's like it's going to be one of these two guys. It's going to be either Macho or Piper. But I guess I kind of love them both equally. They're both amazing wrestlers, great promos, good wrestling ability and athletic and yada, yada, yada. But yeah, let's bring up. We've got a few slides in that, nothing too fancy, mostly just like some cool photos and stuff from memorable moments. We'll just kind of jump around. And I'm not going to do like, here's his whole career because it's way too long. I mean, he started in the 70s and went right through to pretty much up to about the year 2000 or so. Had several mini retirements. But yeah, I've been off the booze in recent months, which is better for my belly and better for my health overall. But being today's a hot rod episode, I might have to raise a glass and have a little toast to the hot Scott. And before we kick off into some of the getting into some of his career highlights and rivalries and such, I'm going to play a little clip here. And this is just I'm having a little toast to the Rowdy one. In 1 minute. Bagpipe music. All right, bit of bagpipe music, which I do quite enjoy. When I was a kid, I used to go to my grandparents sometimes on a weekend, maybe once a month on a weekend, might stay over the night. And a neighbour across the road named Mr. Delgetty. Sometimes he'd be out there in the morning, full kit and caboodle. He'd be out there, kilt on, and playing some bagpipes, standing out in the street. And I loved it. I love that sound from a young age, just from hearing this bloke playing it across the street from my grandparents. And certainly an acquired sound or taste for some people. Some people, it's like a cat getting strangled, but I genuinely love the bagpipes music. And with the drums too, of course. About once a year here, we get up the back main road behind us. They shut it down for half a day. And there's some old codgers that come out and they get the full gear, like the hats, the kilts, they get the bagpipes, they got the drums, and they're a full, like, you know, professional outfit. They get out there and they march down the street doing the it's like a memorial thing, and there's actually a war memorial up at the local park 2 blocks from my house. So they walk from the far up main road down to here, and it takes them about 20 minutes because they do it slow marching style, and they walk with primary school kids from the local primary school each time. And so I've seen them a couple of times. Usually I'm at work when it happens, but if I'm home happen to be home on the day, because it's always a weekday. It's not on Anzac Day. It's on a different day. It's like a World War I Remembrance Day or something like that, like an Australian one. I always get confused with the international and Australian days. But anyhow, there's a memorial up there, and it definitely says like World War I Memorial on it. And a few times I've actually climbed up on the roof of the house and sat there and watched them, because they're going down the main road where it's behind our property. I'd have to walk 15 minutes around the blocks to get there. So I just climb up on the roof with the ladder and sit there watching them. And I remember last year I sat up there the whole time just watching it, and I just absolutely loved it. And there's the school kids walking past. They're all like waving and smiling at me, sitting on the roof watching them march down the street with the old timers. What's Phil saying here? Nothing gets the wind up your skirt like a good bagpipe. That's right, Phil. Boba Hicks, Love Survivor Series 1990. Phil says it was a ripper. The ripper, mate. Yeah, I'm in the process of doing some dodgy I'll say memorables, so I can watch the Survivor Series stuff offline because it's not available on DVD anywhere here. I've got like complete Royal Rumbles from beginning up to 2000 or so. I've got some of the Manias. I've got the complete SummerSlams on disc, but you can't get Survivor Series here at all. It just doesn't exist. So I'm doing some dodgy versions because the network's going away here in January. So I don't know what's going to happen after that, whether a lot of the old stuff's going to disappear, and that's the only reason I watch it. I don't care about what's happening week to week on the current shows. Not to put them down, there's been some good stuff. I mean, Punk versus Drew has been fun, but Piper versus Hogan, this was, of course, very memorable. Lead up to the events of, we had your weekly shows back then in the 80s and your Saturday night's main event and other stuff. But of course, we had WrestleMania. We had the infamous Manias with like Piper and Hogan and Mr. T and all that. And certainly, if you think of the 80s and think of Piper, it's probably one of the first things anyone who's heard him thinks of as like WrestleMania. But of course, he was also in Starrcade, of course, very first Starrcade where he fought Greg the Hammer Valentine. A very bloody dog collar match, which is like one of the most brutal wrestling matches I've ever seen. And it's the one where he also lost his hearing basically in one of his ears. And I don't know, I think he actually like ruptured his eardrum or something. But you can actually see the moment in the match when he goes to stand up and he's just wobbling around on his feet. He looks punch drunk, but he's not knocked out. It's because his balance has gone from the damage to his ear and he's just stumbling around, falling all over everywhere. It's really brutal and horrible to watch, but an amazing match. Yeah, really brutal. I mean, look at like not just the blood and the usual color, but like the physical damage they take to each other, and it's a long match. And then I've watched this on the I believe it's the first Starrcade that this is on, and incredible match. And then that's just the event, this big pay-per-view event. But then they went out and recreated this match over and over again, something like 30 or 40 times for other shows on the circuit. I'm like, oh my God, how are they not dead? The amount of punishment Greg Valentine and Piper took is crazy. Any guys ever seen Hell Comes to Frogtown? Probably Piper's second best movie after that. I keep meaning to watch it. I've been aware of it since I was a kid, but I've never. It was never at the rental store or anything. So I keep meaning to actually watch it. So I'm going to try and track it down and have a look at that. But I've certainly been aware of it for a long time. Just haven't got around to watching it, and that's the only reason I'm aware of it because Piper's in it, of course. But yeah, amazing match with the dog collar. Phil says, no, sir, I have not seen that movie. But yeah, I do actually want to watch it though. But let's jump back here because that was some of the latest slides. So early on in Piper's career, well, before he even really got into his career, pro wrestling career, he studied amateur boxing at like the youth club where the pastor helped get him off the street, where he was busy getting into street fights and potentially getting stabbed and stuff like that on the mean streets. He trained in amateur boxing. He trained in amateur wrestling, as in like proper wrestling. And he also trained in judo up to like about a black belt degree or so. And Gene LaBelle also trained with Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee, not to mention Ronda Rousey and Roddy Piper, and helped kind of toughen him up as far as not street toughness, but as far as like show business toughness, like how to perform on movies and on camera and wrestling. And Gene LaBelle was more known as an actual stuntman, actor. He was a semi-pro fighter. He certainly had the real world skills to kick your ass, or just about anybody's ass in his era, whether in the ring or out of the ring. But he's a real colourful character, and he's had run-ins with all sorts of people. And he did have a very brief period in the 70s where Gene LaBelle was actually involved in pro wrestling as well, along with some of his family members and other people in California. Don't know a whole lot about it. I was just reading about that today. But yeah, Gene LaBelle was a real colourful character. I was already thinking I wouldn't mind doing like another episode like Monday Live probably about him at some point, because he's such a interesting guy. And it's been a long time since I've done any martial arts and that, but I used to read about him like 20 years ago when I was getting into martial arts stuff, reading about all these colourful characters from the kind of 70s and 80s on the martial arts circuits and Hollywood and everything. But yeah, this picture here we got on the left is down there Piper giving a bit of hug / choke, and on the right there that's from the on set on the Bionic Woman, and the episode's really fun. That's from season 2. There's actually an episode on Bionic Woman where like quite often like she goes and infiltrates other jobs or professions, pretends to be part of as like a spy sort of thing, or James Bond or whatever. But on that particular episode, it's actually Glow, the glamorous ladies of wrestling, and it's got some of the actual people, I believe, from the promotion are in the episode as well. I mean, they might just be actors, but I think it's some of the people from the promotion. But that's actually what's featured in the episode is Glow, and there's Jed LaBelle being the referee with Lindsay Wagner, the Bionic Woman. So pretty cool. And I watched the episode a few months ago. It's a really fun episode. Okay, what else we got in here? Let's have a look at. I'm going to play another clip. I won't play it just yet. I'll play that in a minute. That's an audio clip. They Live, of course. Awesome John Carpenter movie. And we did cover this on the Boba Joe show, me and Mike, last year. Did a deep dive on this, as well as other Carpenter movies recently. But They Live, such a brilliant movie. Piper's fantastic in it. And he really embodies that role of this kind of train hopping hobo man of the world, going around to different places and getting different jobs and whatnot, and grifting here and being on the streets, because he did that in real life. So he'd lived all over the world. He's lived in Australia, lived in bloody Saskatoon, and lived in Scotland and other different multiple parts of Canada, multiple parts of America. He's been all over the place, well traveled, both before and during his pro wrestling career. But the little insert shots there with Keith David, where they have that crazy choreographed fight, which goes on and on and on, where Keith David's more like a stage actor with an amazing voice and presence on film. No real experience in any kind of fights or stunts. So Piper coached him through the whole thing, and went through the repetition and practice it like you would, I guess, like a dance routine, or anything, or martial arts practice. Do this, go here, do this, and they have a really knockdown, drag out, crazy on-screen brawl, which is like incredibly memorable scene of that movie. And it's meant to be these two kind of guys who are friendly having a falling out, but he wants them to put on the glasses and see the aliens who are trying to make you obey and consume. But yeah, fantastic scene, awesome scene. The old WrestleManias. I mean, we had a couple of WrestleManias in a row with Piper, of course, and very memorable feuds and matches and promos leading up to them with Paul Orndorff, Bob Orton, and I think Superfly Snooker was around some of these bits as well, and the kind of background man. But this scene here was very memorable from the Mania, where T picks up Piper and does a bit of a fireman's carry. And it's the one kind of, like, I guess, actual wrestling move he does in the match. But even though T is certainly in shape and looks great here, looks great in Rocky, and he's usually a pretty in shape guy back then, he had some amateur sort of, had some basic boxing skills, but he wasn't a fighter by any means, or a wrestler. So they had to coach him through how to do stuff in the lead up to this, how to do show wrestling. And it was Piper's suggestion to do the fireman's carry, and not only to do it, but to pick him up and to pause and hold him like that, and to just mug for the cameras. And he basically said to them, like do this. This will be the photo they take. There's the proofs of the pudding. This is one of the most memorable shots that went out to like the magazines and whatever of the time. So it's showing not just Piper's like in-ring promos and wrestling skills, but his like skills for the business and for what what's good for business and all that, like other people would do, like Stone Cold and that, where they're always like thinking not just about how they're going to look, but how are the other guys going to look in the match, how they're going to make your opponent look good. Because they, as I love Mr. T, but they had to carry him in this match, and they had to coach him through and make him look good, because it was a massive hey, Ronnie, trick shot, what's going on? Here's a trick shot for you right there. That photo's pretty awesome. Phil says that's a great shot. Yeah, so Piper was always good at like making his opponents look good, as the best pro wrestlers usually do. What else we got here? Yeah, and then we had the following year, of course, they went. We had the tag match at One Mania with Hogan and T and Piper and Paul Orndorff and such. Following year, we had a boxing match with Piper and T. Lots of really cool lead ups and promos and trash talking and drive talking leading up to the weeks of this, which are great to watch. But the actual match itself was it's fairly rubbish. It's like about the worst boxing match you've seen, but it's a show match. It's not even like a real exhibition match. I remember how much of it's fact and fiction, I don't know, but the way Piper tells it is that he got kind of pissed off. He wanted T to actually really come at it and actually hit him and do something because he's used to taking blows, and he found T was being too cautious and trying to egg him on and all this, but ended up being a bit of a nothing match really, and as far as maybe compared to the previous year, but it's still, I don't know, it's still a bit of fun to watch. Like I can't complain. The silliest bit was it worse than Tyson versus Paul? Well, no, probably it was better than that, even though this is a show or exhibition match within a wrestling format. So it's not a real match. They're not really hitting. They're just touching each other, But Tyson Paul, you've got a young man versus an old man, and that's never going to go well. A young buck fighting a fucking old warhorse legend. It's never going to go well because once you're over 40, especially 50, your cardio conditioning goes to shit no matter what you do for high intensity, which boxing needs. A lot of it's anaerobic, as in without oxygen. If you just hold your breath and just punch as much as you can, like in a bag, you can probably do it 30 seconds, and that's you're using oxygen's already in your body as opposed to breathing in more. And the older you get, the worse that conditioning gets. Your body just can't adapt. So any young man versus old man in boxing is just a bunch of bullshit. So, but here, Piper, they're of good condition, good age. So they're both physically fit and capable. So I would watch this over Tyson Paul any day, even though one is a fake match for a show and the other one's supposed to be a real match. Well, probably both you could call exhibition matches. There we go. Boba Hicks says, no, Roddy, not as bad as Tyson versus Paul. Mr. Roddy, Mr. Ronnie T. Roddy T. There's nothing he can't do. But yeah, Sully makes a good memorable photographs, and the old Hot Scott's got his tartan shorts on there, so you can't beat that. I'll have a sip of bottom shelf whiskey for that. Can't afford the fancy stuff. So there we got that was like the big main of the previous year. You got T mouthing off all his gold chains, Snooker on backup, Hogan, Paul Orndorff over there, Orndorff and Piper, both better wrestlers than bloody Hogan and T any day. Tougher, wrestle better, more charisma. That's me. Phil said, I don't think anything could be any worse. I assume you mean the Tysons thing. Like, I don't know why Tyson would do it, because I mean, probably ego and publicity. Because I'm sure, unless he's one of these idiots like MC Hammer that's just pissed away all the millions he's made. I don't know. I don't follow his career, so I've got no idea. I know he's made a lot of money, but who knows if he's Mr. Treasures for T, if he's pissed away all his money. I don't know. Good quote from the old Piper. You couldn't get a date with a $20 bill taped to your forehead. Okay, now I'm going to jump back here because we have something I prepared earlier. A really cool clip here. There's Piper actually did a podcast about 10 years ago before he passed away, unfortunately, quite relatively young, in his 60s or so, of heart disease, which kind of, if he could have afforded proper medical treatment, probably could have prevented, but he was pretty much broke, so there wasn't much to do about that. But yeah, anyway, he had a podcast. He did about a good 50 episodes. Most are on YouTube. I've chucked links in the show description if anyone wants to check them out later on. But he talks to all sorts. Talks like DDP and talks to classic 80s wrestlers and, Jim Cornette one. I was just listening to that again. Really excellent podcast, and just really shoots from the hip, talking about all kinds of shit from then and now. But I've got a clip here I'm going to play. It goes for a couple of minutes. Now, this episode is from 2015 with Greg Valentine, but you'll hear mostly Piper talking, and he's talking about, not about Greg Valentine, who's talking with him on the phone. He's talking about Johnny Valentine, Greg Valentine's father, another professional wrestler, talking about some of the infamous ribs that Johnny Valentine got up to and the the Johnny Valentine story is a pretty legendary. There's multiple people have told them. You know, you've heard them from Hogan, you've heard them from Cornette. Lots of people have told these stories, but this is Piper telling this particular story. So a couple of minutes on this, and then we'll be back again.
Talent. And what he would do is, back then, a lot of the boys wore cowboy hats, different kind of hats, and Johnny Valentine could squat down, and he could take a poop in your hat. But the exceptional part of it was he could put the Dairy Queen whip on it.
That is a talent.
That's a talent, come on. Just like Dairy Queen. And him and Johnny Valentine and Jay the Alaskan York kind of had some words back and forth. So, transferred to Calgary, Canada in the middle of the winter. Jay's in a house with some gals, and Johnny was in there, and Johnny got the garden hose. And he tied it, attached it inside to the faucet, ran it outside to where Jay had a brand new Cadillac convertible, but it's like 30 below. Johnny breaks the window and puts the hose inside the car. In the morning, it's just one piece of solid ice, and Johnny's gone. Okay. I don't know, a little time goes by, and the next time that Johnny Valentine and Jay York are together, Johnny Valentine was in Manhattan, and he was in, those bars stay open till 5 in the morning. Jay, in retaliation, went and rented a huge, real deal arc welding truck with angle iron, and he watched while this man angle ironed Johnny Valentine's car to like the parking meter, to the metal on the post. I mean, just a really nice job of angle ironing. And Johnny Valentine came out whenever he did, the angle iron guy was gone. And like they say, Johnny Valentine didn't even see that the car was angle iron. And he got in the car and he turned it on and he slapped it down into drive, and he's trying to, sparks are flying and smokes are going, and so he slams it into reverse, and like, what's wrong with this stupid guy? Nothing. And so I guess he was going in to call AAA, and he fell over the angle iron, and that's how Johnny discovered his car was angle iron.
Yeah, a little bit of clip from the old Pipers podcast. There's a whole heap of those episodes I've chucked in the show description link. There's a couple of YouTube channels that have kind of saved and archived them. I've also got them saved offline for myself, so I can chuck them on things to listen to and re-listen to them. So hello to Ronnie and Zazzle Logan Phoenix. Watch out, Phoenix is on the rise. He had that match with the old Filator bringing you in that bike was a bit of shenanigans. Anyone thinking, you're off your truck trolley, Johnny? What are you talking about? I did a silly parody wrestling video on the weekends on the channel. I'm scared a copyright pull is coming. Oh, I can tell you exactly what happened last week, so I'm avoiding it this week because it wasn't a copyright strike last week. All it was the clip I was playing of Macho Man at the pool with Liz. I'd already uploaded on YouTube and it was fine, so I could use it. There wasn't any issue. But it did some of the wrestling stuff from WWF/WWE is blocked in territories like, I don't know, like Russia and Sri Lanka and basically a lot of third world countries where they don't have the rights to play or use stuff for whatever reason on YouTube. YouTube's got blocked or disagreements or whatever the hell it is. So it can play in like USA, Canada, America, Australia, Ireland, Scotland, all that. Basically anywhere that anyone actually watches my channel would watch it. And all the countries that basically are the ones where like ones that most don't speak English and wouldn't be watching this anyway. But what happened was because it was live, because it was blocked just in those certain other non-English territories, that's why it pulled the live thing. So I didn't know it was going to do that. But it won't pull audio thing. This is just from a podcast. So WWE don't own this podcast. They had nothing to do with it. It was an independent podcast there's like 3 different channels on YouTube that already have the podcast up. And I did have a couple of other Piper promos I wanted to play, and I'm not going to actually play them this week because of that same reason. It has that same non-English thing blocked. So if I'm not going to play them because it will actually cut out. So I learned my lesson there. And at least I know why it did it, because it annoyed me at the time I'd uploaded and tested it. It's because I was doing it live. Because if it was live, someone from Russia could have logged on and they're not supposed to be able to see that particular clip. And basically that's why. Hello to all our Sri Lankan friends. Yeah, no offense to anyone that's living in other countries. You're certainly welcome to watch any of the nonsense on this channel. Hello there, Kiwi GI. Yeah, Zay was saying copyright's part of the reason he rebranded. Yeah, I know. Look, because it's not just, you can have stuff up, and there are a lot of channels on YouTube that have a lot of wrestling stuff that just fly under the radar, or they've got some kind of exemption because they're probably making passive advertising income for the whoever actually owns the thing they're playing, where it's not going to them. Because there's a lot of channels that have full, complete Raw episodes from like 93, 94, whole pay-per-views and other stuff. I have no idea who Matthew Matson is. It's Roddy Piper. This guy here. I don't know who that is, so you have to tell me. I'm just going to assume it's either an actor or a sports person or something like that. I have no knowledge of. You could always get someone who speaks Scottish. Yeah, it's not a voice I could do. It's like you can all watch something on TV and get 1 or 2 words, but you can't do a whole sentence unless you can really get that whole bro going and all that. But yeah, Piper and They Live, T Mania. Here's a cool shot from one of the Christmas parties. This is when he's much older, but he's there with Dusty and Mick Foley dressed up as the old Santa Claus. Excuse me if I pour some water. It's pretty warm here again. My whiskey is finished and I've refilled with water. Precious, precious water. Here's one on the right here. I got a Piper figure and a bit of a Hogan. This certainly, there was no match with him getting handcuffed or chained up, nothing like that. But I got those chains one day from a Jada Frankenstein's monster. It's like the things he's walking like this, and they fit quite well on the Piper. They just snap around the wrist, and I thought it was kind of fun. Thinking of the Valentine Piper dog collar match, I was just thinking of that, and I thought it wouldn't be fun if it was just Piper and Hogan. I thought trained together, and if Piper was just thrashing them, throwing them around the ring for half an hour, that'd be fun. I'm pretty sure Hogan would be dead by the end of it because he can't fight very well. He can't wrestle for shit. He's certainly got plenty of charisma and plenty of other talents, of course. But yeah, just a fun photo. And one from Piper's Pit there with Paul Orndorff. Piper's Pit, of course, was a legendary segment in the 80s. And after, excuse me, pause for a burp. After Piper had his career kicked off in the 70s in the various territories, he's done a little bit of AWA. He's done some Mid-Atlantic. Often some of the old 80, 81 Mid-Atlantics, you'll see him with Slaughter, often on cool promos and stuff on there. And of course, Vince came in towards the mid-80s, did the big sweep of talent and destroyed the territories and swept up all the good talent. Everyone he could find, from DiBiase to Junkyard Dog to Terry Bollea, Piper, Sergeant Slaughter, of course, Paul Orndorff. And Piper had his kind of run in WWF, which didn't go too good to start with, but before the Manias and such, before the real big high profile events. But all these Piper's Pit segments, he really got to shine, got to see what a mouth and wit he had, where he could just shoot from the cuff. And I mean, he would write and make stuff up as well, but he was really good at just making stuff up on the spot as well as writing things. Really good wit and coming up with things and just pissing people off, pissing off the fans, messing with, whether it was a face or a heel, messing with the other wrestler who was in on the work of knowing that, he's going to sit down and insult them. That's the segment. But, ones like Jimmy Snuka where he smashed him with the coconut was so infamous where he basically knocked him out for real with a coconut to the head. That wasn't scripted. He just, did it. Just a fucking maniac. What's going on over here? Can't believe Hulk Hogan's still alive. Well, Hogan, I don't know what drugs and shit. Steroids aside, he wasn't real. I don't know if he was much of a boozer or a pill popper like other guys. I'm sure he took his share of shit back in the day, but he wasn't like a big hardcore Shawn Michaels fall asleep on fucking Quaaludes in your chair before a miss your goddamn match in the hotel sort of lifestyle. So, other guys had more harder lifestyles as far as too much booze and pills and other shit. So that's probably part of the reason he's still alive. And he didn't fall asleep driving off the road in the horrendous distances. Our buddy Adam from Go Figure does a great pipe impression. Well, there you go. Next time they do one of those Zellas for the fellas, if I'm having to be in the comments, I'll be going, come on, do it. I'll be egging them on. Kiwi Jai is body slamming that like button. Watch out. Just when you think you know the answers, I change the questions. I can't really do the voice, but that's kind of the delivery does. What's going on out there? Just 2 seconds. My missus is banging on the door for some reason. Just magpies trying to shoo him away. Just 2 seconds, guys. He's making a lot. Sorry, guys. My missus was shooting off some magpies and smashing the door around for some reason. Can't believe Roddy isn't. Yeah, he died of preventable causes. He had heart disease, basically. I mean, sometimes it's going to get you no matter what, but he was in his 60s, and a couple of years before it happened, he said, whatever age, he goes, I'm not going to live to make the next couple of years, because he was absolutely broke and he couldn't afford any medical care and he could see it coming. And it was he's on record basically predicting his own death in the next couple of years, and then it happened. Mark says, I would sacrifice Hogan to bring Piper back to life. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsor, the Family Magpies, who's currently eating worms and beetles on our front lawn. I don't know why Mrs. is going weird about it. Our cat's inside, so he's fine. But, he was out there early and I brought him in because when there was 5 or 6 of them, he's sitting on the lawn thinking, I'm going to stalk these birds. I'm like, no, you're not, Pedro. You're 17 years old. You've lost some weight last year. You're not exactly in fighting shape to take. You've got a gang of magpies. Because they will, even 3 magpies will easily kill a cat. They'll just, it sounds kind of horrible, but I've seen it happen. They will swoop straight into your guts, and their beak is like a knife, basically, just disembowel you. Kiwi's saying, I made a Roddy Piper to train Despo Trips. Oh, for a moment, it was a train. I'm like, oh, what? You made a Roddy Piper train? Like, no, to be the trainer. You made a Roddy Piper train. It's hard to read all the small text, and I was trying to my brain was just flipped out trying to make sense of that for a second there. Despo Trips. Oh, yeah, of course, because they, there was actually, he is one of the guests in the G.I. Joe line, along with the Fridge and a couple other ones. I know quite a few people have done custom Chuck Norris, and other people have done custom Stallone / Rocky because of the big bow, of course, was meant to be a Rocky type, but then they didn't end up pulling the license and they went with the actual Rambo toy line instead, which I think was Coleco or whatever. But anyhow, back to wrestling. We're talking about toys now. That's what happens. We get toy mates talking about wrestling. But yeah, I got his biography. That's like the toilet book. No, biography. The biography book is quite old now from Piper, but it was definitely worth a read. Really enjoyed that one. I was just rewatching the DVD doco, which is probably nearly 20 years old now. From they put out on the official like Hot Rod Best of 3-disc set. Like you can get that about $10 on eBay. But actually, in that doco, he's actually holding the book in some of the interview segments, which is kind of cool. So you can hold the book. But yeah, his biography thing's like not super long, but it's pretty good. Covers most of his career. Tells you about his early days. Tells you about the kind of horrible things he went through, living on the street and nearly frozen to death and stuff in Canada. So he's definitely was a legitimately tough person. Not like to be like showy tough on TV, but like, you know, he became tough from nearly getting beaten up and stabbed and shit when he was a teenager on the street before he even got to martial arts and boxing and wrestling. And he went into that stuff to get away from that rough sort of life. But then, of course, in some of the southern territories and places he's been, I was just re-listening to the Jim Cornette Piper podcast episode. And it was in 1980. Jim Cornette was young, still a ring photographer. He said it was actually at a match, like a match he'd paid to go to and saw Piper at. And as Piper was coming out in the entryway, this guy just like bolts out of the crowd and tackles Piper to the ground and starts trying to attack him and that. And Piper like just flips him over and mounts him and just like basically hamburgers his face in like 20 seconds, just bam, 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 bam. And then they Cornette goes on that podcast. He goes, "I've been afraid of you for 20 years. I couldn't turn down the invitation to be on your podcast." Like when they carried that guy away with the stretcher, he was like twitching and convulsing. He's like just a mess. But yeah, a few times people had attacked Piper in going into out of the ring. Times he'd been stabbed at least 3 different times. He'd been stabbed. And even when he got stabbed, like real seriously, he still beat the living shit out of the person that did it to him before they before the guy either ran away or police got him or whatever. Because oftentimes in the crazy crowds, people just stab wrestlers and get away with it because they can't even find them and it's too late and they just take off. Kiwi says he's got the broken English is terrible. Zazel says such an iconic look. Yeah, he had the old 80s look with the kilt, of course, and sometimes he'd wear the T-shirt with the panther on it, the old Sex Panther. Back in the early 80s days, he'd sometimes be wearing like a tartan thing or just a kind of green or yellow shirt and that. Yeah, I want to get one of those Hot Rod shirts. I would be happy to get one. And I forget which of the slogans he came up with, but Vince always tried to trademark all the wrestlers and names and such. And Piper was one along with Ventura and Slaughter, who's like, no, you don't own me, Vince McMahon. I'm just here to fucking work for you. Don't own me. You're not my fucking daddy. You're not my sugar daddy, Vince McMahon. I'm my own fucking man when it came to Piper and Ventura and Slaughter. I forget which of the variations of Hot Rod and Piper and Roddy. He came up with one of them. One of them was for the merchandise that Vince could have and sell, and one was that Piper was going to keep using for whatever. But I forget which exact wording and thing, but that was one of the reasons they came up with the stuff to get so that they could trademark something, but so that Piper could still use and say his own, style or whatever. Number 8. There we go. Yeah, it's funny you keep saying about the broken English. Like that. No, you just speak Kiwi English, man, like me. I mean, but I've been living here. Oh, Jesus, it's 20. Yeah, it's been 23 years now in Australia. I've actually seen a bloke this week who's like, he'd be in his 60s. He'd be in the 70s. And he's from like New Plymouth or something. And I saw him the other week and was chatting away to him. And I think he's been here for at least 30 years or whatever. But he still speaks like a Kiwi. And when I go in and talk to him, and it's like, well, he talks like similar to me. He can actually understand me. And I talk to some other people, and they're like, they can't understand me. I'm like, well, you kind of forget that I'm from a different country, and other people. It's not just me who talks like weird. There's other people that talk weird as well. Do you want 8 T-shirts, Ronnie? He will sign them up, Phil. There's hold him accountable for that. He's signing up for 8 T-shirts right now. He's not a wrestling fan. He's a cricket fan, so he might modify it into some sort of cricket version of a Hot Rod. I don't know. be careful. See what happens with that. But yeah, legendary wrestler, old Piper, and interesting fellow both inside and outside the ring. Like, I really enjoyed the doco on the DVD they put out quite a long time ago in his biography book. He's a really interesting character, along with people like, say, Bret Hart or DDP, or who actually have like real integrity and character to them, aside from their like real life, real person character, aside from this show wrestling performance character. And you know, they're more interesting to me than some of the lightweights who do like a character on screen, but once they're away from the cameras and stuff, they don't. I don't know, some of the wrestlers, there's not much substance to them. They might be good athletes, but there's no real personality to them outside of the ring and all that. So it's one of the things I really love about Piper. He's one of a kind. He's got a unique attitude and style. He's legitimately tough and been through all kinds of crazy shit. But he's also a real family man. Like, he moved further away from where the promotions were in his later years and spend time with his family and all that, and lived away from the limelight and I don't know, photographers or press or any of that sort of shit. You know, spent time in his later years with his family and that, and raising his kids. I didn't even know, because I was listening to one of the old podcasts, but apparently his son went on to be like a pro mixed martial arts fighter, apparently a decent one. So it was interesting. I remember when he painted one side of his face, body in black. Yeah, that was for the I forget the name of the dude. Was it Bruiser Brody or someone else? Yeah, he did that for a lark, like in that match, and he did that as part of his teasing and taunting as a heel leading up to that match. And some people wrongly think, oh, he must be a racist, because it's like he's like the least racist person you could ever meet. Not at all. He'd lived with Indian tribes, he'd lived with Scottish people, he lived with Australians, he lived with Canadians. Never a racist bone in the dude's body, because he never was brought up with that sort of attitude. Yeah, thank you. Bad News Brown match. Yeah, I confused with Bruce just because of the B's, the letters. I confuse in my head, like Bruiser Brody, Bad News. I do it all the time with streets when it starts with M, when I confuse the thing that starts with the same letter. Yeah, Bad News Brown. But that's still on the DVD, so like I've got that match and those full promos and stuff on the Best of Piper 3 disc sets on that. I believe it was on the network for a long time. Only in recent years they kind of edited out because of modern PC values. And it's only because of people looking back at it who wouldn't really get the context that, I mean, he's a heel. He'll do or say anything to get a rise out of people. And while he was born in Canada and had Scottish heritage and such, he did have the gift of the Southern wrestler insult style, which, they'll say anything about your wife, your family, your race, your religion, anything. They'll say anything to like get a rise out of the crowd and the people. And, you know, there's good wrestlers who would famously say all sorts of nasty stuff in Southern territories wrestling who were not racist in the least. They do it in character. And there are other people who might not say it on screen, but are complete pieces of shit who were racist fucking assholes. I mean, like, probably Hogan falls into that territory. I don't know how much I'd qualify him as that, but certainly he's been caught out saying, you know, all sorts of nasty shit behind the scenes. But yeah, the old dog collar match with Valentine. And this shot here is real. I like this one here. This is from quite a number of years ago when his family is still young, his kids are still little tiny people, because they're all well past being adults and probably got their own kids by now. But nice shot from when he moved out away from the big city into a more rural area, wanting to spend more time with his family and such. But yeah, pretty much gonna wind up here, I think. So I'm gonna run out of things to say. So I think we will finish up. Kiwi says, I remember he loved the Bushwaggers. Luke and Butch. You can never understand what the hell they're saying. even though from Kiwi boys, when you look, but they do speak in a real Ocker style when you hear them. They're always like sticking their tongues out. their heads at like weird angles and shit. Yeah, I got this picture. I forget where I found it, somewhere online, but I've got this in the outro for each week we do on the Boba Joe Show podcast. There's a bunch of images from like Schwarzenegger and Stallone and Macho Man, but they're not movie stuff. They're all ordinary things. Like there's Arnold riding his push bike around California, which he's been known to do very much in the last 20 years. There's one of Stallone where he's just like sitting down real casual style and, not in character, where it's just like them off screen being themselves, not being the persona, but just being a genuine person. But yeah, I just want to say thanks to guys, thanks to Boba Hicks, Kiwi GI, Ronnie, Zazel, Phil, and do we miss anybody? Let's jump back up here. I think I got, thanks to everyone for checking out the Piper special. And so I'm going to finish up right here. And even though I played it earlier, I'm going to go out on a bit of the pipes, lad. Bit of the pipes. Let's play a bit of that one again, if I can find it. So here we go. Play a bit of the pipes to go out on.